in Mark 12, there's a very interesting interaction between uh, a scribe and Jesus that you don't normally see throughout the Gospels. Usually, when it comes to like scribes and Pharisees, Sadducees, they would come and come at Jesus in an accusatorial way or trying to catch him up in his words. But this interaction is very different. Beginning at verse, I think it's 28. This interaction is different in that this scribe seemed genuinely interested from the kingdom, and Jesus in the kingdom, and Jesus gave him some. He told him a very interesting thing. So it says, verse 28, and one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? And Jesus answered him, the first of all of the commandments is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. And the second is like, namely this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. And the scribe said unto him, well, master, thou hast said the truth, for there is one God, and there is none other but he. And to love him with all the heart, and with all the understanding, and with all the soul, and with all the strength, and to love his neighbor as himself is more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. And when Jesus saw that he answered discreetly, he said unto him, Thou art not far from the kingdom of God. So very, very interesting. So a scribe comes up to Jesus, and not in the normal way which you might see a scribe or a Pharisee approach him. They ask him a question, but Jesus, knowing their intentions, knowing that they were there to try and trip him up or to try to catch him in something. But in this case, he asked him a question. What's the greatest commandment, essentially? And Jesus told him, love the neighbor, love God with all your heart, all thy soul, all thy mind, all thy strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And then the scribe, after that, he didn't try to say, oh, well, what about this or what about that? He was like, I agree with you, essentially. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And the thing I think that caught Jesus' attention was the scribe said to love him with all the heart and with all the understanding and with all the soul and with all the strength, and to love his neighbor as himself is more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. So this scribe was very, I guess, insightful in the sense that he realized that loving God was more important than doing these ceremonies or rituals of sacrificing burnt offerings to God. He knew that love was ultimately better than just sacrifice. Was it obedience is better than sacrifice? No, he realized that loving God with all your heart, soul, and strength is more desirable to God than just offering up burnt sacrifices. And Jesus said, thou art not far from the kingdom of God. He realized that he got it. And that's not an interaction that you see a lot in the Bible where Jesus says, wow, you're not far from the kingdom. You actually understand. And you're there. You have an understanding about the nature of God and what he really desires of us, what he desires that we do. He wants our love. He wants our whole and complete devotion. He wants to be glorified through us, and he wants us to love our neighbors as ourselves. These things are better than any kind of ritual or sacrifices that we can do. So yeah.